Have you ever seen someone so confidently wrong about something it's almost impressive? That person at a party who lectures everyone on quantum physics after watching one documentary. Or the amateur chef who's absolutely certain their disastrous dish is a culinary masterpiece. It's a fascinating and sometimes frustrating part of human nature. We often encounter people who seem to have an unshakable belief in their own brilliance, even when all the evidence points to the contrary. But what if I told you that this isn't just arrogance? What if it's a well-documented psychological phenomenon? Today, we're diving deep into the Dunning-Kruger effect, the cognitive bias that explains why some people with low ability at a task overestimate their skill. And perhaps more importantly, we'll explore what it means for all of us, because, as it turns out, we're all susceptible to a little bit of this flawed thinking. The story of the Dunning-Kruger effect began in 1999 with two social psychologists, David Dunning and Justin Kruger. They were intrigued by a rather comical news story about a bank robber who, believing that lemon juice would make him invisible to security cameras, proceeded to rob two banks in broad daylight without any other disguise. His invisibility was, of course, a complete failure. This bizarre case sparked a question in Dunning and Kruger's minds. Could it be that incompetent people are not only incompetent, but also lack the very skills needed to recognize their own incompetence? To test this, they conducted a series of studies. In one, they asked undergraduate students to rate their own ability in grammar, logic, and humor. Then, they compared these self-assessments to their actual scores on tests in those subjects. The results were astounding. The students who performed in the bottom 25%, the ones who did the worst on the tests, grossly overestimated their abilities. They believed they were well above average. On the flip side, the top performers, the true experts, actually tended to slightly underestimate their own skills. This is the core of the Dunning-Kruger effect, a cognitive bias where people with low ability at a task overestimate their ability. It's a double curse. Not only are they unskilled, but they are also too unskilled to realize it. So, why does this happen? It's not about intelligence. The Dunning-Kruger effect can affect anyone, regardless of their IQ. It's about a lack of metacognition. Metacognition is our ability to step back and evaluate our own thought processes. It's the little voice in your head that says, maybe I should double-check that. For people with low competence in a particular area, that little voice is often silent. The very knowledge that would allow them to recognize their mistakes is the same knowledge they lack. Think of it like this. To know you're a bad singer, you need to have some understanding of what good singing sounds like, things like pitch, rhythm, and tone. If you lack that fundamental knowledge, you can't accurately judge your own performance. You hear yourself, and to your untrained ear, it sounds perfectly fine. On the other hand, the experts, the top performers in Dunning and Kruger's studies, underestimated their abilities for a different reason. They found the tasks easy, and they mistakenly assumed that everyone else did too. They knew they were good, but they didn't realize just how much better they were than the average person. This is often referred to as imposter syndrome. Once you understand the Dunning-Kruger effect, you start seeing it everywhere. In politics, where leaders with limited expertise on complex issues might propose overly simplistic solutions with absolute certainty. On the road, where a significant percentage of drivers rate their own skills as above average, a statistical impossibility. In online forums and social media, where a little bit of information can lead to a lot of misplaced confidence. In the workplace, where an incompetent employee might be completely oblivious to their poor performance, making them resistant to feedback and difficult to manage. The consequences of the Dunning-Kruger effect can range from harmlessly amusing to genuinely dangerous. It can hinder personal growth, damage professional relationships, and even lead to disastrous decisions on a larger scale. Now for the most important question. How do we avoid falling into the Dunning-Kruger trap? Because let's be honest, we all have blind spots. Here are a few strategies. First, keep learning. The more you learn about a subject, the more you begin to appreciate its complexity and the vastness of what you don't know. As Dunning and Kruger found, improving a person's skills in a particular area also improves their ability to accurately assess their own competence. Second, seek and embrace feedback. Don't just wait for your annual performance review. Actively seek out constructive criticism from people you trust and respect. Ask them to be honest about your weaknesses. It might sting a little, but it's essential for growth. And when you receive feedback, listen without becoming defensive. Third, question yourself. Get into the habit of challenging your own assumptions. Ask yourself, how do I know this is true? What evidence do I have to support my opinion? What if I'm wrong? A little bit of intellectual humility goes a long way. Finally, know the limits of your expertise. It's okay not to be an expert in everything. In fact, it's impossible. Be confident in the areas where you have genuine knowledge and experience, but be quick to admit when you're out of your depth. Defer to the expertise of others. The Dunning-Kruger effect is not a judgment on anyone's intelligence. It's a fundamental aspect of how our brains work. It reveals that the path to wisdom begins not with the accumulation of knowledge, but with the recognition of our own ignorance. The ancient Greek philosopher Socrates is famously quoted as saying, "The only true wisdom is in knowing you know nothing." In a world overflowing with information and opinions, this idea is more relevant than ever. So the next time you feel that surge of absolute certainty, take a moment to pause. Ask yourself if you've truly earned that confidence. By embracing a mindset of continuous learning and intellectual humility, we can all become a little smarter, a little more self-aware, and a little less likely to be that person at the party who thinks they know it all. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, be sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone you think is a genius, or maybe someone who just thinks they are. See you next time.